From the studios of Boise State Public Radio, I'm Samantha Wright, filling in for Gemma Goddett. This is Idaho Matters. When the sun goes down, most of us are safe and snug in our beds, but outside our walls, all kinds of wildlife is stirring. From grizzly bears to moths, squid to owls, there's a whole world that comes alive at night. Charles Hood is a naturalist who's been studying what happens after dark. He's got a new book out called Nature at Night, and he's here to tell us more. Welcome to Idaho Matters. So, how did you start studying animals and the other things that come out at night? How did this all begin?
Well, we all know who bird watchers are, right? The birders that keep lists of all the birds they've seen in the country or the year or the day or their backyard. But there's a subset of people, and I have to confess, I kind of like them even better, the mammal watchers, and they keep lists of all the animals they've seen in the world. And that means you're out at night quite a bit, just simply because mathematically, rodents and bats, these sorts of things, they all count too. It's lovely to see a chimpanzee, and I've been to Uganda to do that, and the gorillas and all the giraffes and zebras and all that. But to see bats, you have to become nocturnal yourself. And that mammal watching really got me into exploring nature at night.
You mentioned bird watchers and their lists. There's actually a picture of you in the book with a little sign because you reached a milestone while you were out looking at things.
Well, that yes, I almost didn't put that in the book. It's a little, I'm a little ashamed of it. But yes, I have seen 1,000 species of mammals in the wild, which puts me in the top, 10 people or whatever, pick a number between 1 and 10, and that's how many people. The world champion is actually a man named John Hall, and he's twice ahead of all the rest of us, but everybody else is sort of clustered at the 1,000 mark, and it's fun and sort of trivial and silly at the same time.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, when you think about it, all of the animals that are out there, and especially in this book, because it's called Nature at Night. I mean, so it's all about animals and other things that you see at night. It's amazing to think that there are that many that you can look at and track down, and that's just a small number of those. So tell us about the book. What kinds of things are in the book? I have to tell you, when it first arrived, I thought it was going to be a series of fuzzy pictures from trail cameras, and that is not it at all.
There are a few trail camera pictures in there. Thank you to the National Park Service for some of the ocelots. But no, I have to tell your listeners, I am really fanatical about getting great images, and that especially is true for having images that are not deer in the headlights. That cliche also applies to how people use flash photography after dark. And so I went to the rainforest actually with fashion photography lighting.
Nice.
If we think about the typical fashion magazine, perhaps your listeners don't spend much time there, but nonetheless, there's an aesthetic that goes with fashion. And they like to wrap the light around the model with a soft, diffused kind of, almost like the light kisses the model. And my philosophy is, well, bats deserve that love too. Fashion models are already gorgeous by themselves. They don't even need any help. So who needs the PR? Our little friends, the bats. And so how do you get a great picture of a bat? You use the tricks of fashion photography. So it's a real pain in the caboose. I don't really recommend this as a hobby. First of all, it's expensive, but to go to Peru with all these duffel bags of lighting and, and each light has to be on a stand and all this kind of stuff. But it gave really great results. So the book has got zero, this is like a little null sign, a slash line, zero deer in the headlights, and entirely looking for images that are clear, but nonetheless not overly lit and not sort of cruel to the animal. The bright lights are almost too harsh, really, for the animal's face.
Right. And you have some beautiful pictures. I'm looking at ocelots and jaguars and not just, things we think of as beautiful, the beautiful cats and all of those, but you've got I'm not going to say this wrong, a Phuket prick.
Oh yeah, the Fusa. You're talking about the one from Madagascar, the one that looks like a little puma.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's spelled for your listeners. It's spelled Fossa, but on the ground, for whatever reason, in Madagascar, they pronounce it Fusa. And yeah, it's a type of civet that has grown into be a puma of Madagascar. And it was coming down the road, and the guide's about ready to soil it. Oh my God, it's a Fusa. And jump out of the car and, lay in the dirt, get the camera going, and try to get that shot. So yes, there's a head-on shot of a Fusa in the book. Worth the price of admission, if I could say so myself. That's a darn good picture, and one you will not see. And taken in the wild, not taken in a zoo, and one you won't see many other places.
Well, and animals that maybe we don't know or are familiar with, like I think it's a paca, nocturnal, Cute little guy. I'm looking at his picture right now. I guess he's under some pressure from hunters. We don't have to go into that because it's the lunch hour. But you have so many animals, and not just animals. You've got other things in here. You've got moths. You've got natural phenomena that happens at night, like the aurora borealis or phosphorescence in the ocean. This really is all about nature at night, yes?
I think what had happened is when I was a kid, I used to go to these all-you-can-eat buffets with my parents, and they went to the cheap kind, and there was like food from every cuisine, like macaroni and cheese next to the shrimp kind of thing. And so I get my ideas about nature maybe from the buffet that everything should be in the book. If it's going to be, why not have oceans in the book? Why not have rainforests in the book? The one fun thing for the readers of the book and your listeners might want to be alert for this is the last chapter is a sort of a narrated or guided walk down a road in Panama. So if you want to kind of get that blow by blow narration of what is it like to be in the rainforest at night, there's no audio track, unfortunately, but I try to verbally on the page narrate down. Let's actually go to the rainforest in detail and be in Panama. But yes, the rest of the book, we're looking at all the different ecosystems, deserts, mountains, oceans, and just trying to celebrate the great abundance and the great diversity of animals that are out there.
Well, and we're in Idaho. I'm in Idaho. I've seen owls at night, raccoons, the occasional fox, and moths. You have moths in the book. I see all kinds of moths. They land on my front door at night. They're still there a little bit in the morning. What kinds of things can we see at night in the West?
Well, Idaho is an interesting, location since you've got sort of Rocky Mountains meeting the Pacific Northwest at the halfway point there in Boise. And one of the things about moths is they're simply being smart. If we think about being a flower, if you're a bright red flower and you're out in the daytime and you want to be pollinated by a bee or by a hummingbird, you're competing with all the other flowers. And as we all know, by golly, there's a lot of flowers. And so if you want to be like, hey, how can I get away from the maddening crowd here to do our Hardy quotation? How do we get away from the crowd? Oh, I'll bloom it and I'll be white and I'll bloom at night and I'll hope to attract a sphinx moth or something because there's simply going to be less competition. And so the moths are doing the same thing. Like, hey, if I'm a butterfly and I'm out during the daytime and I'm not poisonous, something's going to want to snatch me up. A kingbird's going to want to eat me right away. But if I'm moth at night, all the birds are sleeping on their little branches. That just leaves the bats. Now, unfortunately, there are a lot of kinds of bats, but there's ways that the moths can try to jam the radar of the bats and so on. But it opens up possibilities. So anything out at night is making a choice, if I can use that, in air quotes. I realize that they didn't philosophically decide what species to be before they were born, but they're exploiting a niche that was available to them and avoiding predators or accessing resources in a fun kind of cool way. As soon as we see a moth, we think, oh, that's interesting. What's it doing? Well, it's pollinating. What's it pollinating? Oh, there must be some night blooming flowers around here. Oh, how do I find those? Well, let's go look for them.
Right, exactly. And you have so much great science in here. And we're talking about moths. I learned from your book, and tell me it's true, that grizzly bears eat moths, and for part of a period of their time, they eat a lot of moths. That's their primary protein.
Right, they're caterpillar, the larval form of the moths. They're not catching the moths in air. But of course, we all know that bears graze. I think most of your listeners have a sense of, that bears don't just, if they're waiting to just eat people, they're going to run out of people pretty soon there in Yellowstone National Park. So they have to eat something else besides people with picnic baskets. And so, of course, we all know bears are eating ants and tubers, and they're a broad spectrum kind of omnivore. But yes, it is true that the protein from the larval forms of the moths can really help grizzly bears get a layer of fat for the fall, prior to the fall hibernation.
That's something you wouldn't think about because giant grizzly bear, little tiny moth caterpillar kind of thing. And wow, you got to eat a lot of those to get that on. Okay, you have a lot of chapters. You have a chapter on owls. You have a chapter on bats. Our other producer, Hannah Gardowski, she has a western screech owl that has come back to her backyard for the second year in a row. She's very excited. She wants to know more about owls and western screech owls.
Sure. And so just to give your listeners a kind of a size, we all have seen great horned owls either in the zoo or in your backyard or a city park, but the screech owls are smaller. So if you're a grown-up adult and you've got a fist, make a fist. And that's basically the body size of a western or eastern screech owl. There's two species in
They're
North America.
tiny.
Well, it's whiskered screech owls in Arizona too, so three species. But yeah, they're actually very tiny. And the western screech owl is kind of a bouncing ping pong ball. If we imagine you were in a disused stairwell, without any carpeting, like in the back of a university building or something, and you drop a ping pong ball down the stairs. That's kind of how the call of it doesn't go hoot 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 like a great horned owl. It's got a little different kind of call. And they're eating smaller prey. They could take a moth, but they're not moth specialists like flammulated owls or something. They're looking for the micey kinds of things primarily. So, not like a great horned owl is can take a cat, it can take a skunk, take a mid-sized raccoon. Maybe not the fiercest, biggest adult raccoon might be a little bit of a handful for an owl, but the screech owls are going to be taking smaller kinds of prey. But how your staff, how everybody in their yards, everyone listening, how you know what it's been eating is find the pellets. So underneath any owl roost tree, any species of owl, they have to cough up the bones because they can't poop them out. That's just not how their systems work. So they take the fur and the bones that they can't digest and they cough them up like a little cat hairball, and it makes a little gray wad, and they dry. Unless you're watering your lawn a lot, they dry and become kind of crumbly, and you can pick them apart. If you want to be super cautious, you could use rubber gloves. To be honest, I don't, but I take all kinds of. I'm the guy who had bubonic plague, so who am I to listen? Don't listen to me, listeners. Use your rubber gloves, please. So you can pick apart the owl pellets and find out from the little mouse jaws and the little ribs and the little spinal vertebrae. You can find out what they've been eating. I remember taking apart a pellet and had like green plastic. This doesn't make any sense. Why is the owl eating green plastic? And I realized it was actually the exoskeleton of a scorpion.
Ooh. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's really creepy.
No, it's really fun. We're going to use it. Listener, she said really fun. She didn't say really creepy at all.
Okay, yes, no, fun. So I guess, so give us some advice. If you're going to start looking for animals at night, like a western screech owl, or maybe something out there you don't even know is out there, what's the best way to get started? I know how to go out and look for birds during the daytime, but how do I look for animals and other things at night?
A couple of things. You want to make sure you're safe, so we don't fall off a cliff and don't get sexually assaulted and all these kinds of things. But assuming we got a hiking trail that or a public park that simply going out alone or with a friend with a few flashlights. Remember that if you just have one flashlight, you're guaranteed to drop it in the stream, or you're guaranteed to have the batteries. This is Murphy's Law, right? So I have a backup flashlight when you break the first one, but go out with two flashlights and just walk slowly, scan with the flashlight, and listen. Let your senses expand slowly, radius going outward, outward, outward. We're letting our senses, we're taking in the smells of the environment. We're taking in what we can hear far off. Maybe we hear a coyote. Maybe we hear the rustling of a skunk going through the vegetation. And we're going to shine the light around and see if we can pick up some eyes looking back at us, since nocturnal animals typically have what's called eye shine. They reflect eyes, like you've ever seen a red eye. Back in the day when we took party pictures, people had red eyes from the flash. Animals have eye shine back at us.
Oh, sure, my cat does that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, cats have, of course, got that reflective layer as well. And so you're looking for the eye shine of the deer or the raccoon glow, and you can actually see them half a mile away, depending on your flashlight. You can actually see animals quite a distance away.
Oh.
And then you can literally have one friend hold the flashlight and the other person uses the binoculars and say, "Oh my gosh, it is a blankety blankety blank, whatever it's going to be." Bats the way to know about bats is using audio detectors. There's a thing you can plug into your smartphone that'll make the audio calls audible, visible, so to speak, in air quotes, visible to your ears. Makes you actually plays the call back at a frequency humans can hear, and these also will help you identify the bats as well. They're a little bit expensive. The trick is to get a friend into this and have the friend buy it for you. And there's also, then we get super hardcore. People use these heat reading imagers, these thermal scopes that make, animals that are warm-blooded, like mammals, they give off an ambient, brighter than ambient light, so to speak. They're hotter than the air. And so you scan with these thermal binoculars, and suddenly the animals are very, very visible. You could see, again, a deer at a half mile off kind of thing. But that's specialty stuff. Just go with the flashlight, go for a walk, see what happens.
You,
If nothing else, you've had a nice walk and your heart thanks you.
you you mentioned some apps in the book. I've used Merlin, the app Merlin, to identify birds during the daytime. What kind of apps can we use to help identify animals, birds at night?
For bats, you need this free software that can be downloaded from the company that you got your bat detector from. But I also recommend iNaturalist. And even if you take a phone like of a moth or lichen glows in the dark under a UV flashlight. I should have mentioned that for those of you who like to see scorpions. I know some of us on this conversation aren't fond of scorpions. I realize that, but they glow under UV light. But also lichen grows under UV light. And so if you have, again, someone holding the UV light, someone taking a picture with the phone, you may be able to have people on iNaturalist do sort of our community outsourcing and help us identify what you are looking at. And modern cameras are so good. You can take pictures in very low light now with most modern cameras and get a picture of that distant coyote or that screech owl perched on the branch.
I should point out we do have scorpions in Idaho that glow in the dark. If you
All scorpions glow in the dark, and you have.
oh,
I'm guessing here. Don't Google this, y'all. And get on my case, but I'm going to say you've got 50 species of scorpion in Idaho, or 30, 40, 50. You've got way more than one, and all scorpions worldwide glow in the dark. And there's a whole lot of argument about why. You could read the book for all the different nuances of that, but the reality is a $10 UV flashlight will make a scorpion glow bright blue on the trail.
yeah, that is so cool. Instead of taking it to your party rave, take it outside and see if you can find scorpions, because that's really, really neat. Okay, I'm seeing
Better for your hearing too, that way.
right. You'll be able to, and you'll hear a lot at night if you don't go to raves. I see a lot in this book. You have seen a lot of things, mammals, birds, moths, or whatever. Do you have a favorite nighttime creature?
I am fond of bats. There's 1,472 species of bats in the world, and I've seen a couple hundred of them, I guess. But they do all kinds of cool, interesting things. Like in the Amazon, there are bats that catch fish. That's what
Oh,
how they live. They don't just like once in a
wow.
while accidentally catch a fish that got washed ashore in the Amazon River or something. But they listen with their super acute hearing for the fins breaking the water of a still pond. The little minnow-sized fish, and they're swimming along close to the surface, and they're making a slight little ripple disturbance, and the bat can hear that. And it's got these great hooked talons and a kind of a membrane between its legs and by its tail, and they swoop out of the darkness and zap that poor little fish. Didn't know what was coming,
Oops.
and then they fly and they hang upside down in the forest and eat them. Head down, the bat's head is down, and suck them up into their mouth, chomp, 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 eating and there's two species in the Amazon that do that, and there's a third kind down in Baja. I just think that's amazing. And there's of course bats that eat frogs, and bats that eat fruit. There's lots of fruit eating bats, and I don't know. I just get a thrill out of seeing them. I don't know why.
Well, and as we said, there are other things in here besides animals and birds and moths and bats. You've got earth shine, moon glow. There are all kinds of things to see. You mentioned the lichen. Uh, there are things besides animals to see at night.
Glow in the dark mushrooms,
Oh,
sure.
neat.
And we're really still learning. In Idaho, you have flying squirrels in the forests, not out on the plains, but in the forest. And flying squirrels in North America fluoresce under UV light also. And how that was discovered was some people were lichen researching, if I can use that as an active verb. They were out in the forest looking for lichen with their UV lights, and a squirrel flew by, and the squirrel was glowing like heck. What's going on here? They glow pink, actually. And then now we know that platypuses in Australia glow under UV light.
Oh my
And this
gosh.
is a kind of a new field. For those of you who are kind of debating, what should I do my PhD on? I highly recommend fluorescence in mammals is an understudied field, and it gets to take you all these cool places. So absolutely, there's so much more to learn and discover, including glow-in-the-dark mushrooms, glow-in-the-dark platypuses, the
Wow.
the aurora borealis. Like let's just open up our possibility and stop being afraid of the night and just go out and have some fun.
Well, I like that. And I think the book is awesome because, as I said, there's a lot of science, a lot of pictures, but you make it very, very easy to read, very conversational, lots of factoids. Is there a target audience for the book? Is it for anybody?
You should have asked the marketing department that. I can just tell your listeners that when it comes to nature, I'm really tired of this sort of high church nature writing. I don't know if any of you ever experienced this, where you feel like you have to have clean underwear on and sort of wash your hands and sit there very vertical posture and look proper and only use cautious language. It's the reality is when I'm going down to go hiking, I'm driving my car. In my car, I've got the rock and roll playing on the radio. Like I don't lose that sensibility just because I've gone hiking or become a different person. So I don't mind if there's cinema references in my nature writing, and I don't mind if there's rock and roll references. I think that that's part of our total humanity is all the different aspects of culture, including the humanities aspect of it. So yeah, the writing is a little bit jazzy, if I can use that expression, or I tried to make it that way. And we hope that the readers appreciate it.
Well, I love it. I think it's a great book. Everybody should check it out, Nature at Night. Thank you so much for taking some time.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
We've been speaking with author and naturalist Charles Hood about his new book, Nature at Night. It's out now. I'm Samantha Wright, filling in for Jim Gaudette. You're listening to Idaho Matters.
This is the Idaho Matters podcast. I'm Gemma Gaudette.